The 737-10 has the same Autoland capability as the other MAX minor models. Given the difference in size, it still has to be certified to this airframe. So we publish in the operations manual crosswind limits, headwind limits, and tailwind limit that are guaranteed that the Autoland system will function. So we have to test at or beyond those wind limits.
For Autoland's testing, particularly in high winds, we're really making sure that the autopilot is doing what it needs to account for those winds, and that the autopilot can safely land the airplane.
Crosswinds are probably the trickiest conditions to go and find and chase, and there was a lot of sacrifice that the team brought to make sure we get a good test window in, because they truly believe in the work that they're doing, and they want to certify this amazing product.
We've got our flight test weather folk evaluating all of the models, and we typically don't have really good fidelity until 2 or 3 days out. So when we're on wind watch, we're pretty much ready to launch within a couple days notice.
With gusty winds, it can tend to blow you off of the lateral guidance. And so we're assessing whether the airplane's performing appropriate, timely corrections to the flight path.
We also test some worst case scenarios with maybe some systems not functioning. That's when I really feel the winds, especially in the back of the airplane.
As mentioned, the Dash 10 has the same Autoland capability as the other minor models, and it matched its smaller twins in the MAX family.
This cert campaign, we were pretty efficient with locating these winds and capturing them all in a couple days. This is a lot about the efficiency of the program and just being able to get the job done when we're out there.
The airplane is it's always fun to fly. It's it's kind of a pilot's airplane, and can't wait to get these delivered.
Boeing just deliberately flew the Boeing 737 MAX 10 into extreme crosswinds. This was not an emergency. It was not an accident. It was one of the final and most demanding certification campaigns before the aircraft enters commercial service. Boeing's official feature documented the testing, describing how extreme winds put the Boeing 730-710 to the test. The concept sounds counterintuitive. Boeing's flight test teams actively sought out the worst wind conditions they could find. Rather than avoiding bad weather, engineers waited for it deliberately. They traveled to locations where naturally strong and gusty winds offered ideal testing conditions, including Midland, Texas, known for its challenging wind environment. The reason is straightforward. Regulators require proof that the aircraft can safely take off, land, and perform Autoland operations in demanding crosswind conditions. Boeing cannot simply claim the aircraft handles crosswinds well. The company must demonstrate it under real-world extremes with regulators watching. This establishes what these tests were actually about: validating performance under genuine challenging conditions, not simply satisfying a regulatory checkbox. When wind conditions turned nasty, Boeing's test pilots were ready to fly directly into them. Understanding why the MAX 10 required this level of testing compared to its smaller siblings reveals something important about the aircraft's design. The Boeing 737 MAX 10 is the longest aircraft in the entire Boeing 737 family. It stretches significantly beyond the MAX 8 and MAX 9. This additional length brings a higher maximum takeoff weight and a distinctive engineering feature: a unique telescoping main landing gear that provides additional tail clearance during takeoff and landing. That extended length is not merely a cosmetic difference. Although the MAX 10 shares the same wing, the same engines, and much of the same flight control philosophy as the smaller variants, its greater length fundamentally changes how aerodynamic forces act during specific flight phases. During the flare, that critical moment just before touchdown, when the pilot raises the nose to reduce descent rate, the longer fuselage behaves differently. During touchdown itself, the extended length alters how the aircraft settles onto the runway. And during gusty crosswind landings, the additional length affects how wind forces act on the aircraft. This naturally led Boeing and regulators to pay close attention to handling qualities throughout the certification campaign: runway tracking, drift correction, landing stability. These characteristics all required careful validation, specifically because the MAX 10's dimensions differ from the variants already certified and flying. The telescoping landing gear adds another dimension, requiring evaluation. This innovative system extends during takeoff to provide extra tail clearance for the longer fuselage, then retracts for flight. The gear's behavior during crosswind operations needed thorough testing to ensure reliable performance across all conditions. The testing itself examined multiple aspects of the aircraft's crosswind capabilities. Boeing evaluated both manual landings, where pilots physically control the aircraft, and automatic landings, where the Autoland system manages the approach and touchdown. Engineers measured how quickly the flight controls responded to changing wind conditions. In gusty crosswinds, wind speed and direction shift constantly. The flight control system must react rapidly to maintain safe, stable flight. Slow or inadequate responses could compromise safety during critical landing phases. The teams evaluated how effectively the aircraft maintained the runway centerline during approaches and landings. Crosswinds push aircraft sideways, forcing pilots and automated systems to correct continuously to stay aligned with the runway. Maintaining centerline tracking in strong gusty conditions demonstrates the aircraft's controllability. Perhaps most importantly, Boeing assessed whether pilots experience handling characteristics similar to other MAX models. This addresses a crucial operational consideration. Airlines operating multiple MAX variants need consistent handling across the family. If the MAX 10 handled dramatically differently from the MAX 8 and MAX 9, pilots would require additional training and adaptation. Boeing has stated that the MAX 10's flight control software was specifically tuned to provide handling qualities comparable to the MAX 8 and MAX 9 despite its larger size. This software tuning represents sophisticated engineering. The system compensates for the aerodynamic differences created by the longer fuselage, presenting pilots with familiar handling regardless of which MAX variant they fly. The crosswind testing validated this software tuning under demanding conditions. If the software successfully delivered consistent handling in extreme crosswinds, it demonstrates the engineering achieved its objective of family commonality. The Autoland system received particular scrutiny. Boeing reported that the Autoland system demonstrated timely corrections in strong and gusty winds. Automatic landing capability matters enormously for airline operations, particularly at airports where weather conditions frequently challenge visibility. An Autoland system that handles crosswinds reliably expands the conditions under which airlines can operate safely. Notably, Boeing intentionally conducted many flights in wind conditions exceeding the minimum certification requirements. This deliberate choice reveals Boeing's approach to the testing. The company was not merely trying to pass the minimum threshold. Boeing sought to build additional confidence in the aircraft's performance by demonstrating capability well beyond regulatory requirements. Testing in conditions harsher than required serves multiple purposes. It provides safety margin, showing the aircraft handles conditions worse than pilots would typically encounter. It builds confidence among regulators, airlines, and eventually passengers. And it generates data across a wider range of conditions, strengthening the certification case. Placing this crosswind campaign in the broader context of the MAX 10 program reveals its significance. Extreme crosswind testing represented one of the final major certification milestones alongside other performance and systems evaluations the aircraft has undergone. The MAX 10 has already completed several critical certification tests recently. Maximum brake energy testing, one of the most demanding evaluations, was completed successfully. That test pushed the aircraft's braking systems to their absolute limits during a simulated rejected takeoff. The crosswind campaign adds another major milestone to the accumulating body of certification evidence. The timing matters considerably. The MAX 10 has faced years of certification delays. Airlines including United and Ryanair have been waiting to adopt the aircraft as their high-density workhorse. Each successful test milestone brings the aircraft closer to the regulatory approval that would finally permit deliveries. The recent FAA proposal to streamline certification procedures could further accelerate the timeline. Combined with successful testing campaigns like the crosswind demonstrations, the momentum towards certification appears to be building. However, the aircraft still needs to complete the remaining regulatory process. These successful crosswind demonstrations represented an important step, but not the final one. Certification requires the FAA to review all accumulated test data, verify compliance across every requirement, and formally approve the aircraft for commercial service.